We are on YouTube and Twitch. Wow. Of that, we'll see if you're really right. Ha! We get her fired up, and Jesse will get us rocking and rolling for this week on Going, as we usually do. And of course, it's Monday, and there's no shortages of things to talk about, as it is. Yay! Well, he's right about both of them. There's a funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Going back and forth on that every day. And of course, it is, as I said when we start off on Twitch and Facebook. It's Monday, and there's no shortages of stories. And just as a program note, put this in the comments, Jesse. Desiree Payne will be in on Wednesday. She had something that came up, so she couldn't come in today. But we will do an hour just on the whole new gun stuff that's coming out and all that stuff on. So tune us in on Wednesday for the whole breakdown of the latest attempt by Joe Biden and the kooks of the world who want to disarm you, and that back and forth. We will get to that on Wednesday. So there was a couple tragic incidents, one in Minneapolis where a police officer appears allegedly accidentally pulled her gun when she was pulling a taser on a suspect who was apparently trying to get away. And there was a shooting at a high school in Tennessee by that, where one person is dead on that particular one. The suspect in the Minneapolis is also killed on that. But I'm going to flip this up. Number 4, this is a press release from the Fontana Police Department. Vehicle theft suspect drives away in police vehicle. On April 9, 2021, Fontana officers observed a suspect who was wanted for a stolen vehicle investigation. They observed the suspect on the 11900 block of Pepper Avenue in the city of Bloomington. Officers contacted the suspect, handcuffed him, placed him in the back of the patrol vehicle. As officers conducted their investigation, the suspect kicked through the safety bar of the back cage and forced himself into the front seat of the vehicle. The suspect proceeded to slip through the handcuffs, drove away in a marked police vehicle. The extensive search in the area conducted and police vehicle was located. A short time later, the suspect fled from the location and the investigation is ongoing. Now, according to PE.com, they did find the suspect again and rearrested him. But I point this out. There in Fontana, police officers had a man handcuffed in the back of the car. He apparently, according to the press release from the Fontana Police Department, kicked through the back window, the cage, you see with the chicken wire and the plexiglass, kicked through that, got in the front seat, got the handcuffs off, and drove away in the cop car. So before we make a rush into why we are, condolences to families who've lost loved ones who were killed. This is another example why you wait and you find out what exactly the whole circumstances were before we all jump to a bunch of conclusions, or we have to do this and we should do that, and da 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 da. Because you never know what another human being is capable of doing. And when it's not your rosy red butt, well, you probably don't care. But one day it could be yours. Or they could put a suspect in custody and arrest them so they don't wind up killing you. Like the Asian woman who lost her life in the Los Sierra area of Riverside recently, who was caught on an assault previously a couple days ago and let out because of COVID, according to the Riverside Police Department press release that we read the other day. So again, before we start jumping to conclusions or saying we got to do this, that, and the other, why don't we work on fixing our criminal justice system that keeps criminals locked up and us from being the next victim or perpetrator or what of a situation, or they're not out to doing things that we're doing that. I will say this. If you cooperate with the police, your odds of getting killed are so far by a police officer are so far off the charts, it isn't even funny. But we will reserve judgment on any particular case until we get more of the facts on that. This is a story that broke today. It's on Fox News. The aforementioned video we are going to play was on Reopen California Schools, run by Jonathan Zackerson, who you heard on the show many times. Gavin was a Gavin Newsom supporter, mind you, until this whole COVID thing. And it actually, per Jonathan Zackerson's Twitter machine, he went out there and collected hundreds of signatures to recall him. Mind you, Jonathan Zackerson's a Democrat. Said he's voted Democrat most of his life. This is the headline. Let's pull up number 4, please. California teacher caught berating students, leaked Zoom over push in-person learning. I'm so sick to my stomach of parents trying to tell educators how to do their job. California teacher tells students. Exclusive high school teachers caught on camera berating students for parents' collective push to remote learning of children in classrooms full time. In the video shared on Facebook, San Marcos High School teacher Alyssa Pyro can be heard raising her voice at several juniors doing a virtual lesson on Zoom. There's actually 2. This is a composite of this. It was posted on Reopen Schools California. The first part has to do with the woke part. So I'm going to see if this lights up. Here we go.
The haters did.
Oh, God.
They are forced to bring awareness to the situation that they are in because other people put them in that situation.
My question is, in this case, where is the white student union? Because we need all races equality.
You don't need a white student union, Jake. Oh. You get everything.
That was Alicia Pyro a few months ago. When the student, I gotta give this guy props. He had guts enough to say in class to the teacher, well, let's have the white, where's the white woke movement going on here? Why don't we stand up for white people? And she jumps down his throat and says, you've got everything. I'm going to hold this book up. The critical race theory, white fragility, whole thing. We're going to get into this more of that. This is going on. Ask your public school administrators if they are not giving this book out to public school employees and pushing this kind of crap. Just like you heard Alyssa Pyro say, oh, which, as the classification goes, if I'm looking at Alyssa Pyro on the Zoom meeting, I would think the vast majority, which I hate these terms, would say she is white. But she's telling a student who's making a very valid point, and one that should be made on this whole thing. Why don't we have white organizations at this, Miss Teacher? And she jumps down this kid's throat like you wouldn't believe and says, you got everything. And you don't think we got a problem in our schools. That's not, well, this is the next one that comes up, and we had to pull the audio up a little bit on there because it's a little bit lower. But this is Alyssa Pyro responding to a student who just jumps on because parents are actually questioning her performance. Here we go.
Your parent wants to talk to me about their profession and their opinion on their profession, I would love to hear that. I know very little about anything else in the world other than education, okay? However, if your parent wants to come talk to me about how I'm not doing a good enough job in distance learning based on what you need as an individual, just dare them to come at me. Because I am so sick to my stomach of parents trying to tell educators how to do their job. I have never once gone to a doctor's appointment and tried to tell my medical health provider how to treat me. You know why? Because I know nothing about that. I didn't get my degree in medicine. I am going off. I'm sorry. This is my go off period.
This is
themselves
my
out.
go-off
They hate.
period. I have never heard a more condescending statement, an absolutely stupid statement in my entire life. Oh, I don't question what my doctor does because I'm not a doctor and that's what my degree is in. Okay, Miss Pirro, you're at the gynecologist. And your male doctor says, this is how, follow this. This is how we're going to do the examination, if you get my drift. Is she going to say, oh, that's okay, or don't question your doctor for sexually assaulting me, or whatever might be going on? Because we heard the one where USC, where the gynecologist was, what was it, hundreds of students were sexually assaulted by USC gynecologist college students. But this dang that, you don't question your doctor for anything? Doctors are never wrong because they got a degree in medicine, or they're not capable of committing crimes. Now, if that was just a statement in of itself on the first part, without hearing the other part about the getting all upset about the student saying, yeah, what about us white kids? What are we, chopped liver? We can't do this, that, and the other. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. This is going on at San Marcos Unified School District in high school with a class. And it's reported the person that finally released the video on this, and they were she went to the principal, to the school officials, hey, you need to do something about this. Nothing's getting done, yada, yada, yada. This is going on for months, according to the reports. So she finally said, here's the video, and now she's saying, I regret not releasing the video earlier because this is what's going on, and the schools on top of that appear to be doing nothing about it. Now you get to this whole thing, and they don't want to go to work. We're using every excuse in the book not to go back in the class. It's absolutely stunning. That we have let our education system deteriorate to the point where they're running practically everything. You want to talk about Joe Biden and his union this and crap? Private sector unions in America are practically non-existent. Go check the stats. In the 70s, 25% of all workers were under a private sector union. Carpenters, auto workers, service workers, and on and on and on. There was hardly a public employee union in sight. Private sector unionization of public employees is down over 400%. It is less than 6% of the total workforce. Yet you hear Joe Biden union this and that. Well, he's systematically, throughout his whole career as a senator, vice president, and now just president, has put policies in place to destroy union jobs, i.e. shipping them to China and wherever. But he'll say, oh, I'm for the people. I'm this, I'm back in that. Well, he systematically destroyed good paying jobs that were held across the deal. And now public employees are now a larger percentage of the unionized workforce than the private sector unionized workforce in the United States of America. Now, we can debate the whether unions are good or not, or bad or evil, or da-da-da-da-da. But the fact is, in the private sector, they are almost non-existent. There was no fiercer opponent of illegal immigration than head of the United Farm Workers, Cesar Chavez. Because he basically said what I said. You use the illegals to come up here as slave labor because you can pay them less, you can work them more under extreme conditions, and they basically have little, if any, recourse to do this. On top of that, they're undercutting the wages of those who are here. It's simple supply and demand. The bigger the supply, cheaper the rate. Works in commodities, bread, gasoline, cars, and or labor. Bigger labor force, less wages. If you don't believe that, look at India, China, and see what the wage rates are there. Yeah, they have like 4 times the people we have. And if for no other reason you don't want to buy that argument, look at what we're doing to our kids, or not to kids who are coming across the border. This is Representative Kat Kamak about Joe Biden's trafficking, calling him the trafficker in chief in the border crisis. This is on Fox News. Here we go.
Trip to Texas to tour the conditions there. Florida Congresswoman Kat Kamak joins us now. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. You hear Congresswoman Escobar saying that there's a better way to do this. Do you agree with her on that?
Well, good to see you, Martha, and thanks for having me on. And yes, there is a better way to do this. It's what the Trump administration was doing. It was the most humane, compassionate, and normal way for putting Americans first, our national security first. And I would challenge Representative Escobar to actually call this what it is, a crisis. It's not a situation. This is a crisis. Just 24 hours ago, I was there in Mission, Texas, and I saw firsthand young girls under the age of 10 that had been gang raped. They had been screaming so loud that their vocal cords had given out.
That's all you need to hear right there. This is 100% on Joe Biden's watch, and all of you that support him are right in there with him. You support all these policies or pouring across the border on that. Why do you think Joe Biden fired whatever her name was? Said, oh, she was only supposed to be there 100 days. Bull crap. She didn't resign. You fired her because your policies that you said, first thing you did on January 20th at 12:05 is sign it. We're stopping the wall, and you told them, come on in. Now, yeah, Trump had this stuff fixed when it started in 19. He had a plan and executed it and knocked it off. You were out there, and your ilk were out there hollering, screaming to the top of your lungs. Oh, inhumane cages and kids that the Biden-Obama administration built. So we don't have to hear reports of 10-year-old girls being gang raped. And sex trafficking and everything else that's going on and the drugs that are coming in of that. And you're not going to, if you aren't aware, you will be after this report. Because it's absolutely incredulous of what goes on. Fentanyl's coming out of China like you won't believe. You know where they peel it up from to get it in the United States? At the Mexican-U.S. border. Sex trafficking, drugs, China. Who's in China's back pocket? None other than the Biden crime family. This has been Berquam. He's on the other side, on the Mexican side of the U.S. border, at a report on Tijuana. He's on America's Voice News on that. Here's his report of what's going on with fentanyl, China, Mexico, and the United States. Here we go.
Their manufacturing jobs because look at Mr. Floyd. I said this before. What would his life have been like if we had stood up to the CCP? We'd had a great manufacturing job. He'd have been a foreman or been one of the lower level management. He would have had a summer home. His body wouldn't be riddled with fentanyl. The poison that is brought in by the Chinese Communist Party through the southern border, and the Mexican cartels are making the money of guys like Mr. Floyd. That's who's making the money. We've let down our citizens. Yes, sir.
80,000 deaths last year from overdoses, 80,000 deaths. And Joe Biden and the Democrats want to confiscate your ARs that caused about 300 deaths. This is the bait and switch that the left always does. By the way, going back to Roberta real quick, Jacobson, We talked about that. The left thinking that this was going to be a slam dunk for them and ended up being a terrible, their policies were utter disasters. It's ironic because I always ask socialists and communist supporters, name one society that's ever flourished under socialism or communism. And the answer I always get is, well, it's just never been done right. So the mentality of many of these people is that, well, they're just going to do it right. They're just going to implement it right. And just like these policies, we're just going to open our borders and it's all of a sudden just going to work. No concept of how these things actually work. But it is. This is the epidemic. You want to talk about a pandemic, an epidemic, the drug epidemic that we see. And it's because China and the cartels only care about one thing, and that's power. Money and power. Money gives them power. And so they don't care if millions of people die at their hands, as long as it increases their power. And this is one of those areas that we're going to have to keep digging in on because there is. The Mexican.
So there you go. Biden, the Democratic Party, as she said, destroys your union jobs, down 400% in the last decades, where you can't make a living, you can't make the opportunity to make a middle-class living at a job has been destroyed. And how they're doing it? Human trafficking, drugs, of that, putting you in squalor. If you don't believe it, look at this. I'm going to pull up number 4, please, a little bit. Look at that. That's what you want to live in. This is Tijuana, right across the border. You want to live in shanties? You want to live in these little busted down, tiny homes? BS they're pushing on us. You want the United States to look like this? Absolute squalor? You want it to look like homeless encampments you see now? That's what we have going. That's what it will become if we let this go. If we continue to fight, if we continue to roll down the path that we are now, that we switched course on January 20th, 2021, an unmitigated disaster. Just flip up number 4, please, quickly again. The reason Mexico, and this is like living at the Ritz at the Tijuana border. You want to see bad? Get down into central or southern Mexico. You want to see this across the board? And Mexico is in that condition because whatever it was 100 plus years ago in the Revolution, they took all the weapons away from the citizens. They did not have the ability to defend themselves from a tyrannical, cut off your head, rape your 10-year-olds, addict you to drugs to control you. And that is exactly what the Biden administration has brought, is, and will continue to bring to America if we allow it. There is no denying the facts, and these are the facts. You want a lawless society? You want to be run by the cartels, the kingpins, the dictators, the tyrants? You want them to educate your kids in this? These are the revered teachers that I hear, oh, my teacher's so great. That's not teachers, it's the unions. No, it isn't. Let's call it like it is. You get the truth on this show. I've said it long before anyone, and I hope it gets more. It's not teachers' unions. Teachers' unions are their representative, and they're speaking to them unless you disagree with it. Along across with everything else. It's time to call it like it is. All across the board. And those of you that talk tough on the keyboard or stand behind it, but when it comes time to standing up to the establishment or the dictators and tyrants, I see you run. And that ain't cutting it. It shouldn't cut it. If you let that stand, you will deserve what you get.
30 seconds.
If you don't stand for anything, you will fall. If you don't stand for something, let me correct that, you will fall for anything. And that's at the point we're at right now.
Here we go. 10 seconds. .com.
OEM Supply King. We got it!
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday at 5:30, live on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all across the Inland Empire and that aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience on iNewswire and Facebook, Twitch, and the evil YouTube as we go on for that. Covered a lot of stuff. The Fontana police that arrested a guy. He kicked his feet through the window, through the plexiglass, through the chicken wire expanded metal, got in the cop car and drove off. I say that because, cops encounter all sorts of situations. And yeah, we have the tragedies that went in Minneapolis today and Nashville and stuff. But as we say, withhold judgment till you get more of the facts before you come to a bunch of conclusions or say we got to do this, that, and the other. Because usually there's a lot more to the rest of the story than that. We covered the San Marcos teacher who for months has been berating students. One student asked, well, where's the white privilege? She said, you know what? You got enough. You got too much. Then she rattles off if parents want to come over here and diss me about distance learning, bring them on. And I'm not doing my job at $110,000 plus for 9 months of work, prorated out. That's over $135,000 a year on a 1-year deal if you work 12 months a year. And you are sitting there berating students. It comes from this crap that is in your school administrators are giving this out to employees. Tell me I'm wrong. It's ridiculous. The stuff we have to go through. We went through the case on the border with Congresswoman Kat Camrock, who reported that we're, along with this whole disaster of keeping kids in wrapped up in like sardines, stuffed in, packaged like that in these camps, 10-year-olds, girls are getting gang raped. All because of the Biden policies on that. Plus, we had Ben Berkwam on there about the fentanyl coming across, of the deaths, destruction, and despair. That comes each and every day that we're doing across that. Nothing more can we say hypocritical than those that go around shouting racist, white privilege, and all the other crap that's going on. As we've rolled out, the co-founders of Black Lives Matter have said they are a Marxist organization. This is on Revolver News. Number 4, please. New $1 million purchase by BML co-founder may explain where all that money is going. According to the New York Times, just one Black Lives Matter online petition raked in $5 million in contributions. The death of George Floyd has been a gold mine for BLM and other black rights groups. We all heard the defund the police and all this other stuff. But there's just more than that. A curious new purchase by BLM co-founder Patrice Kahn-Kohlers is now calling into question those BLM riches are being spent. Kahn, maybe appropriate name, Kohlers, just purchased herself a swanky little $1.4 million Cali pad in a city called Topanga just outside Beverly Hills. Kicker is all of this in that Topanga is elitist white neighborhood where only 1.4, repeat that, 1.4% of the population is black. It's rather curious that suddenly Kahn-Kohlers is able to afford $1 million plus home that she opted to purchase a home in a rich white neighborhood. Apparently, all that white supremacy and oppression can be erased for one small-time fee of $1.4 million. And it goes on, this is not sitting well with the black community. Oh, really? You were following this, or all of you are the ones that are shouting racist and all this other stuff going on. You're not doing that. Here's another one that's even better. And Richard Ryder, who will be on here in number, flip me number 4, click quicker, please. He posted this. This is a picture of Patrice Kahn-Kohlers of the New York Post and the headline, and he says, Socialism and Anarchy for Fun and Profit. Best headline ever in the New York Post. Marxist BLM founder racks up $1 million property empire with at least 4 homes. Black Life Manors, as you see, MANORS, for what you see. And they have a listing of homes starting at $500,000, $590,000, $415,000, and now $1.4 million. Patrice Kahn-Kohlers has racked up in her vast real estate holdings. And as you go through that, and we run through of all the stuff going on, you know, it broke yesterday, the $1.4 million of that. And as I said, I got Richard Ryder to thank for pointing me out for the headlines on that coming up. And that's if that doesn't blow your mind, his latest discovery of what's going on down in San Diego will. But the head guy at San Diego Tax Fighters, Richard Ryder, welcome to Newswire with Roy.
Always a pleasure.
That blew my mind when I saw you when you put that post up with the headline from the New York Post on Patrice Colliers, who not only made big headlines with the $1.4 million purchase in technically as would be considered white bread rich Topanga, but the 4 other properties she owns that were worth about $500,000 apiece on that she's accumulated before this.
It's an interesting situation because the price of the property, one can say, ooh, maybe that's not too much, or maybe it is too much. It doesn't matter. Why does a socialist, a Marxist, need 4 or 5 houses? And we don't know. She may indeed have more, but that's what we found so far. That makes no sense at all. So that means that 3 of the houses are empty, and she just kind of cruises around, goes where she wants from house to house. This is a doctrinaire Marxist, and she makes it clear. She doesn't make any bones, and she doesn't even try to hide it. Some people will say, oh, I'm progressive. Well, no, she's an actual Marxist. She was trained as a Marxist, and now she's at the receiving end of the benefits of Marxism. And there are benefits. The benefits are the people who run it. It's wrong to say that no one profits from it. Some people do. Some people profit a lot. And she happens to be one of them. And the more we move towards Marxism, the more she'll probably profit.
And we brewed that, and you must have been listening to us, and I know you figured this out, Steph, but I kind of outlined that at the beginning of that with the whole thing of the Marxist part of that. But I wanted to show where they get their money and power, but it hits home. In a once great community of San Diego, used to be, up until this last couple election cycles, middle class, upper middle class, opportunity. If you want to, if you probably couldn't make it in San Diego, you couldn't make it anywhere up until maybe the last 10 years. Now that the Democrats in 10 years that they've captured most of the supervisors, mayor, council districts, it's going into a hellhole. Your latest post on Flash Report floored me. San Diego Tribune promotes racial divisiveness with fake news. Richard Ryder.
It's disappointing. To me, it wouldn't be much of a story if it was a one-off article. If it was, wow, that's different. Talking about how whites are basically all racist. You'd say it that way, but that's the inference. But unfortunately, this is the kind of story we're seeing in most daily newspapers today, in one form or another. I think the UT is worse than most because, of course, it's owned by the LA Times, so they're going down together financially. But the core aspect of it was they came out with a story about how the police, and the San Diego City Police and the San Diego County Sheriffs, we're a big area, by the way, 3.4 million people in the county of San Diego, basically that they discriminate against minorities. It says targets minorities. And we'll get into the details here in a moment, but I think the key is, what is their definition of targeting minorities? And here it is. And I finally, after working through the data, I finally figured it out. If any minority, and they cover, by the way, 8 minorities. They do all their comparisons based on 8 minorities. If any minority is stopped by the police more frequently than whites, then that's racism. Now, if any minority is stopped less frequently than whites, that doesn't matter. That's not important. And as it turns out, if you go through the very data that they put in their article, most of the races are, and what they define as racists or groups, are being stopped less frequently than whites. Whites are always up at the top 3 or top 2. And I'm talking about per capita, not just numbers, because, of course, there are a lot of whites in San Diego County, but rather looking at the number of the population and the number of people stopped. The whites are stopped, depending on what criteria you're using, generally at the second or highest rate. Well, that means somebody else is higher. Well, ergo, anyone who's higher than the whites are therefore being discriminated against, and that's really their criteria, which of course is no criteria at all. They don't admit it. They don't say that, and they really should if they were honest. But of course, honesty's never been a strong point of mainstream media. So, and we'll get into the numbers here in a moment. But I just thought I'd make that point. Their basic premise is absolutely, totally, ridiculously flawed.
And that's the point. It's like the whole Black Lives Matters, racist. They're picking on, the blacks or whatever. They're out there. Cops are just looking to kill us. Driving while black. They're just pulling us over for no reason other than the shade of brown of our skin and all the yada yada yada. But when you peel back the onion, like this is breaking on con callers of that and everything else, or a Richard Ryder actually puts real statistics to what's being printed or said in the dominant media, it isn't even just a little bit off. Like I say, you're six times, 12 times I'm reading your 5 times the statistics of this stuff. Now that's just that's out of the statistical probability of anybody just picking on one certain category of people.
Yep, and it's unfortunate. And I've contacted the paper. I have emails from both the reporter and the head guy, and basically what he says is that we stand behind this story. There's systemic racism, always systemic racism, but their own numbers. And I hope some people will at least take a look at the article that I wrote on this. We're not going to get too deep in the weeds on this thing, but it's astonishing. You scratch your head. What do you mean there's discrimination? Look at the numbers. There is no discrimination, and there's 3 different charts they have on there, and in all cases there's no significant discrimination against other groups. Blacks do have a higher percentage of road stops, but they're talking about minorities. They're talking about some group of minorities that are all under the thumb. One of the most interesting ones is Hispanics. They like to lump black and brown together, so they like to lump Hispanics in with the blacks. Well, the Hispanics have a slightly higher than normal crime rate, but in San Diego, 11% higher than the rest of the county. But that's their crime rate, not number of crimes. Crime rate 11% higher. Blacks have a crime rate 340% higher, and they try to lump the two together. Oh yeah, see, it's blacks and browns. No, they're 2 very, very different groups. And the one that really kills them, the one that drives them nuts, are the Asians, because their crime rate is very low. They're stopped by the police less frequently because they obey the law, and they don't give you trouble when you stop them. So as a result, I'm making gross generalizations. There's always exceptions to every case. I'm talking about on average. This is what we're dealing with. And I think probably progressives particularly hate Asians because they put the lie to the fact that blacks can't get ahead, browns can't get ahead, America is rigged against them. Well, Asians have suffered the same discrimination, and they now are better off financially than whites. Just this past year, female Asians, on average, make more than white males. Female Asians make more than white males, and that just blows the top of the heads off of a progressive, because that ain't right. That can't be right, but it is. It's right. There's U.S. Census figures. It can't be missed. Let's cover just briefly, because I know you're limited on time. There's the figures that I hate that they do. They go through all this folderol. They never mention crime rates. They never, and they won't. And I got fired as a columnist for them, unpaid columnist, but a columnist, because I brought up the point that black crime rate was high. And it's not me just making it up. It's not some generalization. We can see the FBI figures. Sandbag collects the county of San Diego figures, crime figures, and there's 4 major crimes areas. Let me just give you these for per capita. This is important to understand. Per capita, the crime rate. On average, blacks are committing murders 6 times more frequently than anyone else. Blacks are committing rapes 6 times more frequently than anyone else. Blacks committed 12 times more robberies per capita than anyone else. Blacks committed 5 times more aggravated assaults than anyone else. Now, we can argue, and I think actually this is really where the discussion should be, is why. and what can be done to prevent it
Yes.
and solve the problem. That's really the discussion that needs to happen. But because the mainstream media refuses to report the crime figures, I think most people don't realize how far off they are. And the big crime problem that we're facing in America is, for whatever reasons, and I would say it's cultural, blacks have a much higher crime rate. And the thing is it racist to say that? Well, no, because over 85% of the victims of black crimes are blacks. So if you care about black people, you should be concerned about high crime rates, not about the dozen or 24 cases annually where there's questions about a police shooting or police mishandling an arrest situation. But compare that with the literally thousands of people that are dying at the hands of this very high rate of crime within the black community, and robbery and rape and so forth. That should be the concern, but I cannot get any mainstream media person or organization to even print these statistics. And they're right there. I'm not making them up. They're right on the website. You can see it on Sandag's website. And it's very easy to understand the figures, but they won't talk about it. And I'm the racist because of that? I don't think so. I think the people who are hiding it are the real racists in America.
Well, if it's a racist, then go down to Hassan Qatari or whatever who came from up here, our evil one, and is now running your sandbag deal. He's running a skag from up here, went down there, and get on them guys. They're the racists. They're the ones printing the statistics that Richard Ryder is just pointing out. He didn't make them up.
And those statistics, they draw heavily from the FBI statistics, which is really kind of the Bible of honest statistics on this matter. And it's not like a rounding error. It's not like we're close. It's a huge differential. And it's very important when you look at these police stops and then you realize what the crime rate is of the various groups. For one thing, the blacks have a higher arrest rate on stops. Well, that's because blacks have 4 to 5 times as many, on average, again, we have to emphasize on average, 4 to 5 times as many outstanding warrants as the other races. So when you stop somebody for whatever the cause may be, and they present their ID, the cops have to run it. And when they run it, they find out, ooh, this guy's got an outstanding warrant. The case in Milwaukee that just happened, where a guy was stopped for a very innocuous issue, but it turns out he had outstanding warrants for illegal use of a gun, and I forget 2 or 3 other violent things that he had done. And so they tried to arrest him because outstanding warrants. And that happens if you have a community that has a high propensity to commit crimes. There'll be a high number of outstanding warrants. None of this is taken into consideration. The other thing that really bothers me is they give the impression that blacks don't want police in their communities. Well, black leaders talk like that. Go down and talk to black people. Look at the surveys of the real people who live there, and not just blacks, browns, whites, everybody else. The number one function of government is to protect us from those who would do us harm. And the idea that if you go ask a black person, do you want the police to withdraw from your community or at least reduce their presence? Do you want a longer response time to your 911 calls? Do you want the police off the streets so you don't have to worry about that anymore? And in response, of course, they look at you like you're crazy. Say, no, if anything, we want more police because they want the protection that it provides. Now, they got beefs about how the police handle certain situations. I understand that. That's fine. And there's a grain of truth to that. But that's not the issue. The issue is, do you want police to protect you? And why is there such a difference in crime rates among the various groups? These are the subjects that need to be discussed, and unfortunately they're not.
Yes, it is. And I will, as we'll roll out of this segment, in the California Constitution, look it up. The number one job of our state and local representatives declared by the citizens is public safety.
Absolutely.
And you just heard why, and Richard Ryder is exactly correct. The ones that support the police or having more police presence in their community is where the crime is being committed, and That is just unadulterated facts. Richard Ryder, thanks from San Diego Tax Fighters. Thanks for being on. We'll do it again real soon.
Keep up the good work.
You got it. I just want to play this again. This is the clip, the first part of the clip, from Alyssa Pyro, school teacher, when the student asks, well, why can't we form a white student union? Here we go.
Themselves out. The haters did. They are forced to bring awareness to the situation that they are in because other people put them in that situation.
My question is, in this case, where is the white student union? Because we need all races
You don't need a white student union, Jake. You get everything.
That student should be high school student of the year in 2021. For once, he's challenging the idiocracy of the dingbat teacher, which he is correct. Where is the white student union? And then she has the audacity to spout off, oh, there, you don't need that. You got everything. Yeah. Plus the stupidity of the rest of her statement of the second one, this has been going on. And when the parents brought this has been going on for months with this teacher. Brought it to the principal, the school officials, they sat on their hands. Finally, now, she felt she had no other recourse than to release the videos. I applaud her for doing it. I especially applaud, again, that should be high school student of the year. That's a teenager who's learning to be a man. He stood up for what was right, what was believing in the principles, and challenging authority when authority's going awry. That doesn't mean whether it's police, and when they do wrong, there's no problem in challenging what or correcting the situation. Few bad cops, let's get rid of them. Bad teachers, out. Let's eliminate tenure. I'm all for, let's call it even. Let's from this point forward, we'll let you keep your jobs and stuff. Let's eliminate tenure. You can be fired for any reason at any time of that. And then let's see how that works out. Let's see how education changes. I doubt that will happen. That's probably why we need to, 70+% are now parents wanting control of the 20+ going over 25 to 30,000 per year per K through 12 student in California. They want control of that money and decide where their kids are going because they've had enough of the Alyssa Pyros running things. We'll be back tomorrow on a Talk About Tuesday with all the news and views coming up. We'll have Dr. Kelly Victory will be joining us tomorrow on that. Desiree Payne will be in Wednesday to break down the gun issue. So I'm back in 23 hours. See ya!